Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Um, really quick story time. I just wanted to share, kind of ties in to today's video, but it was the morning of our Sedona trip, and I had planned this trip for some time now, and 3 days prior, I um happened to grill some green chilies or roast some green chilies on our grill, and we have a cast iron um, flat grill. I don't know. There'll be a picture of it right here, but and so um, I I left this grill outside, and on the morning of our trip, a part of me was like, no, don't put it away, and a part of me was like, yeah, just put it away so that way you won't have to deal with it when you come back. And so I did. And my wife likes to put the um, cast iron grill in a bag, and so I grabbed a bag and I put it in there, one on each, and so that way it can connect, and so that way the whole thing can be covered. And so I put it in the bag, I lay it on the counter, and then I lift the whole thing up because I'm gonna, put it where we keep it, and I end up dropping the whole thing. And once I dropped it, I knew that it fell right on my toe, my big toe on the left side, and it was standing straight up. And for a while, I didn't know what was going on, and it took me like a couple of seconds to process, ow, this thing just fell on my toe. And I stood there, I'm like in shock. I pick it up and I place it back on the counter, and my blood just starts running out everywhere. I'm wearing flip flops, and the flip flop is filled with just blood from my toe. And so at that time, I began to wiggle my toe because they say if you can move it, then it's not broken. And so that was my first instinct, was like, okay, I better do that before I do anything else. And so I come from our kitchen to our guest restroom, and my blood is just everywhere. And then I sit down. I come to my room, and everybody's getting ready. Everybody's getting like their overnight bags and stuff together. And I sit on a chair in my room, and my wife's in the um in the restroom, and I go in there and I tell her what happens, and she's like, oh, um, you'll be fine. And me thinking the same thing. And so I'm sitting there applying pressure, and it's just bleeding, continuously bleeding. And I'm more mad that I was hurt than I was actual mad because of the pain. And so, so I'm sitting there applying pressure, and then piece of gauze that I have is just getting soaked. It's just like overwhelmingly soaked with my blood. And so my wife's like getting ready, and then she is done, and then she was like, I'm gonna go take my brother to the store. You guys be ready. Will you be ready when I get back? I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's already packed in the car. And I'm sitting there, and so they go to the store, and my daughter's here with me, and I tell her what happened and how mad I was. And And so upon my wife's return from the store, she was like, um, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, I just got to put a little bit more things into the car. And I said, but my toe won't stop bleeding. And she was like, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't want to cancel this little overnight trip because, you know, I planned it months and months ago. And, and so she was like, well, have Kelly help you. And my daughter takes a sports medicine class, and so they were learning like how to rap and stuff. Um, and so she came over. I laid on my bed, and I had like this old shirt, and I cut it. I got a scissors, and I cut it. I tear it in half. I put this on the bed. So she drapes the pillow on with this old shirt, and she puts my foot on it, and she gets the bleeding to stop. And so after that, you know, we started packing more stuff after the bleeding stopped. And then we get on the road. We're on the road to Sedona, and we make it to our destination. And since I'm just sitting there, I'm fine. But before that, I was starting to get like lightheaded, and I felt a little like my blood pressure had dropped, and I felt like clammy, and so I was a little bit worried. But after I sat down and after the pressure had stopped and she wrapped my foot, I told my wife that we gotta stop somewhere and we need to go into a store because even at that time my foot would not even fit into a shoe. And I'm like, oh my god, and I know that where we were going with the terrain was going to be tough. And so we get into Sedona. We're almost to our destination, and there's a Walmart, and we stop at that Walmart, and I get like some crop licking shoes, so that way I could have my sock on and just, you know, have my foot in there because it was a little bit swollen at this time. And so we get there, we check into our tiny house that we rent, and we get checked in, and you know, I'm fine. I'm just like taking it easy, and I have this crock on, and we walk down to the river, and then we come back, and then we start to make dinner. I rest my foot on a chair, and my daughter was being my nurse the whole time. And so the next morning, I got in the shower, and it was very hard because like it was a tiny house, and I'm a big guy. Like I'm tall and I'm wide, like shoulder wise. And so it was like very hard already for me to get into this little tiny shower that's about this big, and the turning room is only like halfway for me. And so I get in, and my toe is still bleeding. I'm like, okay, so I change the dressing, my daughter applies more pressure, and it stops. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. And even also at this time I was taking ibuprofen for the pain. And then the next day we drove about an hour or 45 minutes we went over to the Chapel of the Cross in Sedona, and we were going to hike up the trail up to the chapel. And and so we did do that. And when we got there, we got off, and it's so, I don't know if it would be considered steep, but the road is still winding up to the chapel. If you've ever been there, you know what I mean. And if you haven't, you should check it out. It was very awesome, very picturesque. And so anyways, I get into not the bottom, not quite the bottom. I guess it would be the middle part. My wife is lucky to find a really good parking spot. Myself, my stepson, and my daughter um, are walking. I mean, yeah, we start to walk, we start to hike up, and they get my niece and my wife get a golf cart to the top, to the top, to the chapel. They met us up there. We hiked up, and I was feeling fine, and so that evening we drove home, and oh no, I changed my dressing before on our way home. And when we get home, there's like not heavy traffic, but there was like two accidents that we ran into, and so it kind of slowed us down on our way home, and I was fine since I was just sitting. I wasn't walking, or I wasn't using my foot for anything. And so when we get home, I get in the shower. I get in the shower again, and it is still bleeding. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, something's wrong. Something is really wrong, and it's bruised, and it's just awful. It's gonna be a little graphic, but there's gonna be a picture right in here of the way that it looked. And so I tell my wife, I'm like, I need to go into urgent care or emergency or something. I said, something is, really wrong. And so I get to the urgent care, and it's like getting late, and it was probably about 9 p.m. that when I arrived there, and then I was seen, and they took x-rays, and the doctor came back, and he said, yeah, Mr. Pilone, and just to inform you that you do have a broken toe. And I'm like, I was surprised because I've never had a broken bone in my body, and I'm like 34 years old, and I happened to break my toe because I dropped a skillet or a cast iron griddle on it, and so the next day I go to my clinic, to the podiatrist, and you can't really cast up a broken toe, and so they put me in a foot brace, and I called work, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be out for, X amount of time because I have a broken toe. And for the first few days, I stayed in bed, and after that, it started just to heal. I took the medication and everything, antibiotics, and it's doing pretty good now. But just wanted to share that really quick story of how I hiked up to Sedona on my broken toe without even knowing it. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video, and we will see you later. Thank you for letting me share my little story time with you guys, because it just kind of ties into this video. But like I said, thank you again for watching, and we will see you later. Good morning, everyone. We're here in Cottonwood, Arizona, near Sedona. We're here staying in a tiny house. Just for a little getaway for the weekend.